Hello guys and welcome back to the Middlegame Madness. Today I brought you a very special topic. We will talk about the backward thinking. I'm not sure that you ever heard about that. It's really special, not easy, but an excellent tool to help you make decisions even in a tactical position, but mostly in a strategy planning that how could you make the right plan. It's basically something, the backward thinking is something like, that when you have a plan, but you realize that the opponent can prevent this plan, and you start to think backward from the problem. You understand the problem why your plan doesn't work, and you try to figure out, try to find a solution to solve this problem, and after that you can manage to execute your strategy. Today I will show you this tool in a tactical way. I played this game with the white pieces against a very talented Hungarian young guy. d4, knight f6, knight c3. It's my favorite weapon with the white pieces. In the past 2 years I was playing Jobava London with white. d4, bishop f4, a6. It's pretty natural because mostly if black plays something else like e6 is one of the main line, black has to deal with the knight b5. Okay, it's still nothing special, but if black doesn't want a knight to show on b5, then mostly they prevent it with a6. It's pretty natural. e3, e6, and g4. I wanted to mention a really nice plan here. It's not really connected to the topic, just for some interesting stuff. If black plays b5 in this position, the white's best continuation is h4, and it's very weird, but actually it's a waiting move. White wants to play g4, but here of course I cannot play g4 because it could be captured. But after h4, I make a move, I make a waiting move, because now let's have a look what happens for the most natural moves what black has. Black can play bishop b7, black can play e6, he can play knight d7, and all of these cases I play g4. So it's like basically waiting a move before I can do my own strategy. So let's back to the game. My opponent played e6 instead, g4, and h6, and I still remember that he played that move without any hesitation, so I'm pretty sure that he was well prepared, but it seems a very logical move. But in the other hand, I never met this move even after that. Nobody played that move for me after this game anymore. And the reason is simple. Now he prevented the g5, which is true, but in the other hand, if white build up the kingside attack with h4 and then followed by g5, then the h6 brings the black defend closer to the white pieces. So it's going to be more easy to start the attack with white because the black pieces are closer. Probably c5 would be the best option, and also according to the principles, if your opponent plays on the wings, you have to do something in the center. So according to the principles, c5 seems very natural, and after g4, knight d7, queen g4, knight c6, it's a very well-known line in the theory. But okay, h6 probably cannot be that bad, but somehow it feels a bit weird for me. h4, okay, g5 is still not working, but we are trying to make it work. c5 and queen f3, it's an extremely strong move. Why is it extremely strong? Because now I prepare the g5, since now black cannot take it. I mean, he can take it, but I can take it back with the h pawn, So for example, if something happens like bishop e7, now I can do that because my h1 rook is protected, so I can take it back with the queen, and before that I couldn't make it. And on the other hand, if my opponent plays knight c6, which is also very natural, I prepare the castle, and now I could manage to castle to the long side, and at the right time I protected the d4 square. So I managed to castle, and that's important. So now you know what I told you in the previous videos, the best move which helps your plan, which supports your plan, and at the same time preventing my opponent's plan. So now probably black wanted to do some quick knight c6 and try to prevent my long side castle, but after that he couldn't make it. b5 he played, and now of course let's see who is the faster. g5, takes, rook h1, queen h1, that's why we went there, knight d7, and you know, in kind of dynamic positions the timing is extremely important. So g6, I didn't miss this chance to ruin my opponent's pawn structure and weaken his king at the same time. And now it's extremely annoying for black because he has to take it. Otherwise, I will take it, and he lose the possibility to castle even to the long side. But for example, if he plays something like f6, then he would face with knight d5, sacrifice. And he has to take that. Of course, bishop b7 doesn't really work because probably I can, in the worst case, I can give a check here, then I capture the b7 bishop. So it's not a smart idea. And after knight d5, if he takes back, then I take back, and the rook is hanging, the checkmate is hanging on f7. So it's pretty much over. So my opponent had to take on g6, and now you know if the position is like that, the moves are flowing on their own. It's not necessary to think too much because it's just basically natural moves. Bishop d3, king f7, queen f6 first, bishop queen g2, and now king f7 doesn't work because we have bishop g5. Yeah, that's the point. So and the queen would be captured. So it's another problem that he couldn't manage. And also, by the way, yes, but I don't like to find better moves. It's not necessary. Bishop g4 is strong enough, but even knight d5 would be interesting, and making a d5 check and capture the rook in the corner. But of course, we can choose between the victories. Bishop e7, that's why he played that. Bishop g6, of course, if we are the attacking side and we have the space advantage, we are not going to exchange queens, because if you have the space advantage and if you are the attacking side, then every exchange only helps to your opponent. So we take the g6 with the bishop, king f8. Probably it was necessary. I don't think that the king d8 would be much better. I'm not pretty sure, but my first idea would be something like queen g3 or something like that, and it's already a checkmate threat on c7. So I'm pretty not sure that the opponent king would be better even on d8. So he went f8, and now I was thinking a lot between knight f3 or knight ge2, because that game happened many years ago. I do not really remember why I went for knight ge2 instead of knight f3. Probably there was a reason, but I'm also sure that the knight f3 is also perfectly normal. Knight ge2, b4. And this is an extremely interesting position, and I explain you why, because we have some very interesting line here. So normally, let me start at the beginning. Normally, if you have advantage on the positional scale, which is material, pawn structure, space, and king's position. We are better in the pawn structure, we are better in the space, we are better in the king's position. The material is even. So when you have a positional advantage like that, then you shouldn't you should try to avoid any kind of risk, and you should try to play slowly and slowly improving your advantage with preventing the opponent's compensation and counterplay chances. So probably on the objective way, the best continuation would be knight a4. So you have to play like that. If you have the advantage, you have to play safety if the result is the most important thing for you, because this takes zero risk. We exchange, knight c6, castle, and basically black is over. Rook h1 is coming, and we will checkmate somehow really soon. And probably that was the reason why I went to knight g2, by the way, because now in this case the bishop here is protected. So that would be the objectively the best way to continue the game. But you know, I just wanted to have fun, and kind of positions do not occur too much in a chess player's career, and I wanted to bring some beauty, and you know, after I managed this win, that game became one of my favorites. So it's a really nice memory, and probably if I win with knight a4, then it would be more simple, but less good to remember back. So yes, the thing is that let's get back until here. What was my plan? It's extremely simple, and on this position I will show you what the backward thinking means. My first idea was really simple. I wanted to castle to the long side, sacrifice my knight on c3, because after exchanging on c3, sorry, he takes the c3, my idea was rook h1, and I wanted to deliver a checkmate somehow on h8. And now black has a few options, and let's calculate with them how can he prevent that checkmate. Okay, let's insert a check on b2, because probably it's pretty natural. King b1, and king g8 is the only move to prevent the checkmate. Okay, and what we have here, my first idea was queen h3, pretty natural, but he takes the g6, I have a check, and probably black survives. He has an extra bishop, so it doesn't really work. Okay, my other idea, to be honest, my first idea was rook h8 sacrifice, king h8, check, and of course if he goes to g8, he will get checkmated really soon. So that was my original plan, but unfortunately that doesn't really work, because after the check he can play queen h4, and now I do not have a checkmate attack anymore. Probably he is well defended, and I cannot really continue. So yes, I was thinking that how can I earn this position with make the rook h8 work, or queen h3 work, or something like that. I was also considering bishop e5, because in this case, if he goes to queen g5, I have a queen h3. He takes the bishop, check, king f7, and now I have rook g1, which is interesting and much better than the previous line, because now the g7 is hanging, but unfortunately he sacrificed the queen, and here basically black survives, and not only survives, but I think his position is already better. So I was thinking a lot on this combination, on this sacrifice with castling, and thinking about this position here, that after king g8, how can I manage to deliver a checkmate? How can I manage to make the rook h8 work? How can I manage the queen h3 work? Or how can I make anything work? And I started to think backward. What's the problem with the rook h3, rook h8 or queen h3? The problem with rook h8 is of course that he has the queen and he can prevent the checkmate with queen h4. So somehow I should try to chase this queen away. So let's think that that's how I figured out and how find out the bishop e5 move, because I wanted to chase this queen away. But then, yes, I figured out that it also doesn't work because that line that I already showed you. So what eyes I have? And I realized that it's not that easy, but I was pretty sure that this has to work somehow. And then I realized something, which is of course not easy to see, but that's the reason why I suggest to all of my students to solve tons of puzzle, because if you solve a tons of puzzle, then you will recognize these kind of motifs and patterns without thinking on it. Then I try to imagine this position with the d5 pawn unprotected. So I figured out this motif. Now, for example, if this pawn wouldn't be there, then I could give it a check on d5. The opponent king has to go to f8, and then I would have a rook h8 checkmate. And that backward thinking made me find the right move in the position and made me find the right way to sacrifice. Of course, it's not easy, but and also you can apply this tool more good in a strategical position and not into some sharp position like this. But you can also think like that in a sharp position, that if you see some motifs, if you see some patterns, but it doesn't really work because the opponent can prevent it, then how can you make the opponent impossible to prevent your make you do that pattern? And that's how I find that probably it's better to sacrifice on d5 first. But of course I had this line too. Then since I told you that I wanted to chase the queen away, that was another candidate move to start with bishop e5 first before the castle. So that's how I found this candidate too. But in this case, a simple queen g5, I have to give a check, knight f6, and there is nothing. So that candidate didn't work, but my other candidate worked, and that was the knight d5 sacrifice. Of course, he had to take it. There is no other option. And now castle. And I earned the same position, but now the pawn on e6 doesn't exist. And that's a huge, huge, huge difference. Because now, if I can make one more move, so I can play the rook h1, he has to go. So imagine that he plays something, just give back the tempo, rook h1, and king g8 would meet with queen d5, and king f8 and rook h8 checkmate. So that was my idea why I went for knight d5 first. And now black has a few options. Of course, knight c6 is the same way. He loses the game in the same way. Doesn't really work. Knight b6, for example, that would be his best continuation in my opinion, but unfortunately it also loses because bishop e5, queen g5 only move. Of course, we saw that before. Check. Bishop f6, rook g1, queen h4, rook h1 with a tempo, queen g5, check. And you know, if you can get positions like that, probably you already feel that it has to lead to a checkmate somehow. So it's not even necessary to calculate everything precisely, because a checkmate has to be there somehow. And yes, king b5 would meet with check, check, and checkmate, and king b6 would meet with queen c5, queen c7, checkmate. So knight b6 didn't work because the knight b6, if he makes, then he doesn't cover the e5 square anymore. But of course he had to protect this d5 square, so he decided to go for bishop b7. Now I went for bishop e5. Of course, rook h1 would also win, but not in the way that we would think, because now we do not have the d5 check, and there are some like typical engine lines which leads to a winning for white, but I couldn't calculate those in the game. So bishop e5 I played, and now he has two options. He can take the bishop, or he can play queen g5. Queen g5 would face with check, bishop f6, check, rook g1, and queen h6, queen f5. Once again, he has problems on the white squares because the e6 pawn is not there, and if he goes to queen h4, it's the same, queen f5, and if we can go to e6, after that we play knight g3 and rook h1, and we are winning. So he took the bishop, I take it back, and now he also has two options. In the game, queen e5 happened, but let's see the queen g5, because there is an extremely interesting line after queen g5. Unfortunately, that doesn't work for black. Rook h1, and the queen, of course, is untouchable because of the checkmate on h8. So king g8 is still a must. e6, now another queen sacrifice. He cannot take the queen because we have a check, and after that we have a checkmate. So once again, the queen is untouchable. Bishop f6 is only move. Queen h2, and now it's a huge problem because there will be a checkmate on h8. He cannot really escape with the king. Queen h6, yes, bishop f7, king f8, and knight f4. And once again, the queen is untouchable because knight g6 checkmate. So king e7 is a must, check, and you know, if we can penetrate with the queen to the d6, it has to be over, but in the worst case we can simply take the queen, and the game is basically done. So that's why my opponent took the e5 with the queen instead of queen g5, but here rook h1 is a simple win, and that's because the king g8 doesn't work, because we already saw that motif before check, and now he doesn't have the queen h4 because we chased the queen away from the f6 square, so basically he cannot do anything, just king g8, and it's going to be a checkmate. Or he could play bishop f6 here, but it's probably that would be the best. I was afraid from this the most, but this is the best what black can get out of this position, and he has only one minor piece and the rook for the queen, and in the top of that his king is extremely vulnerable, so probably that has to be over very soon. But probably much better than what happened in the game. My opponent played bishop h4, trying to make some escape space for the king on e7. But you know, these kind of positions when we are attacking, the opponent's king is totally exploded. In this case, if the material is even, then we know that the game is already over. Knight d7. Knight f4, of course, we need more attacking pieces, so why wouldn't we join with the knight too? Knight f6, bishop d3, so we have a threat on g7, king f8, and now it's kind of simple. Queen g6, king g8, knight h5, we exchange one defender piece to one attacker piece, and you know, if you have more attacking piece than the opponent has defender pieces, then your attack mostly will be successful. Knight e4, exchange, and one small tactic to finish the game. Knight g7. Of course, it's a must to take it. queen e6. Uh, he can choose between queen f7 or king f8. King f8 is losing because we give a check, and in the next move we will give a checkmate. So he played queen f7, rook h8 check. It's a very typical motif. If he plays, if he moves king g7, it doesn't solve the problem too, because rook h7, and it's the same motif once again. We win the queen. So he played king h8. I took the queen, and now all I had to do is find the right way to check down the pieces. And here he had to resign, because if he goes to the corner with the rook, then I play queen d5 check and I win the rook. But if he stays on the b line, doesn't matter where, then I give a check and I take the bishop. So unfortunately here he had to resign. So yes, in the with this tool, with this backward thinking, you can find the right way or right move order to execute a sacrifice, a combination, but you can also use it to find the right strategy. So if you have a plan and you see how can your opponent prevent this plan, then you start thinking back from the problem, and you start to try to how to solve this problem, and after that, if you manage to solve the problem, your plan could be executed. I hope you enjoyed this session. See you next time. See you soon. Take care.